The fire crackled, casting a warm glow over the Christmas dinner table. Plates were nearly empty, and the air was filled with the comfortable hum of my family's laughter. I felt content, savoring a bite of my mother's famous pecan pie. Then my sister Emily smirked from across the table. "So, Clara, still doing that little freelance thing?" she asked, her voice sweet as poison. "Must be tough, always scraping by. The instability would give me such anxiety." A few chuckles rippled around the table, including from our parents. My heart sank. I forced a small, tight smile. Then Mr. Hensley, Emily's boss, who was seated beside her, turned to me with polite interest. "And what is it you do, Clara?" Before I could even open my mouth, Emily waved a dismissive hand. "Oh, she's between proper jobs. It's kind of a hobby, really, a bit of online consulting." I swallowed the humiliation, my cheeks burning, too stunned to form a coherent sentence in my defense. Just then, my phone buzzed on the table. I glanced down, desperate for a distraction. An unknown number flashed on the screen. "Would love to talk to you about consulting. I heard what you said." The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of muffled conversation and the clinking of silverware. I felt 50 pairs of eyes on me, even though it was only my immediate family. I excused myself the moment it was socially acceptable, claiming a headache. The cold winter air hit my face as I hurried to my car, the warmth of the house replaced by a deep chill of shame. Once inside, I finally let the tears well up, gripping the steering wheel. Taking a shaky breath, I opened the mysterious message. Another text followed immediately. "This is Tom Hensley. We just met at dinner." My breath hitched. "Emily's boss," he continued. "You've worked with Nash Systems, right? I could use your insight." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Was this genuine professional interest, or was it just pity from a man who had witnessed my humiliation? A dangerous opportunity was knocking. Did I have the courage to open the door? I drove home in a daze, my mind flashing back to the past year. I had left a stable but soul-crushing corporate job, burned out from the toxic politics and endless deadlines. I'd poured my savings into starting my own freelance organizational consultancy. It was my dream, but the reality was a struggle, feast or famine. My parents, wonderful as they were, never understood. "When are you getting a real job, dear?" my mom would ask, her voice full of concern. "With your education?" It was always met with love, but it stung. I was the unstable daughter, while Emily was the successful one with her fancy title at Helix Dynamics. At home, I opened my laptop, my fingers trembling slightly as I typed Helix Dynamics into the search bar. The website loaded, sleek and professional. It was a massive, respected firm, the kind of client that could single-handedly change the trajectory of my small business. The kind Emily thought I was unworthy of. 2 days after Christmas, my phone rang. The screen showed Tom Hensley's number. I took a deep breath before answering. "Clara? Thanks for taking my call." His voice was warm and respectful, not a trace of condescension. He explained he'd been quietly struggling with internal conflicts within his leadership team at Helix. "Everyone's pulling in different directions," he confided. "I need an external, unbiased view, someone from outside our bubble." He asked if I would be willing to meet for a proper conversation after the new year, discreetly. I agreed, my professional voice masking my inner turmoil. That very night, Emily called. "Hey," she said, her tone falsely light. "Sorry if I embarrassed you at dinner. You know I didn't mean anything by it. I just worry about you." I clutched the phone, my knuckles white. "Of course, Em," I replied, my voice soft, "I know." But as I hung up, my eyes were cold, and my resolve was set. We met at a quiet, independent cafe far from the city's business district. Tom Hensley was there already, looking more approachable in a simple sweater. He stood to shake my hand. "Thank you for coming," he said, his demeanor surprisingly humble for a man of his position. Over coffee, he laid out his concerns. His company had grown fast, and some departments, including Emily's, had become arrogant and disorganized, resistant to feedback. "They're resting on past successes," he admitted. He needed a clear, honest assessment. By the end of our meeting, he offered me a contract, a confidential evaluation of Helix's leadership structure, with a specific focus on the operational bottlenecks. My first task was to analyze Emily's department. I signed the agreement, my hands steady. The game was on. Walking into Helix Dynamics for the first time was intimidating. The lobby was all glass and steel, a monument to corporate success. But I buried my nerves, channeling my years of experience. I was methodical, competent, and fiercely insightful. I conducted anonymous interviews, reviewed project workflows, and analyzed performance data. A clear pattern emerged. Emily's team was cutting corners, ignoring new compliance policies to meet deadlines, and their communication was a disaster. The deeper I dug, the more concerning it became. Then I found it. An internal email chain where Emily presented a complex data model to Tom, taking full credit. But buried in the thread was the original work, sent weeks earlier by a quiet, junior analyst named Ben. Emily had merely slapped her name on it, and Tom was copied on the entire exchange. The following Sunday, we gathered for a family brunch. The moment I walked in, Emily launched into a story about her fast-track promotion and the huge presentation she had coming up that would surely seal her VP role. She was holding court, our parents beaming at her. Then her eyes landed on me. "And how's the hobby going, Clara? Getting many clients?" she asked with a condescending chuckle. The table went quiet for a beat. I took a slow sip of my orange juice, meeting her gaze over the rim of my glass. I gave a faint, unreadable smile. "It's picking up," I said calmly. "You might just get your wish one day." She blinked, confused by my response, but I just kept smiling. I delivered my preliminary report to Tom. He was quiet as he read it, his expression grim. He then asked me for a specific favor. Emily's big presentation for the VP role was in 2 weeks. It was a proposal for a new client initiative. "Would you look it over?" he asked. "Tell me what you think." Anonymously, of course. I reviewed the slides and the supporting documents. The holes were glaring. The data was incomplete. The financial projections were overly optimistic and not backed by evidence. And her key recommendation was a massive, unnecessary risk. I detailed my concerns in a memo for Tom. He read it and sighed. "This confirms what I feared," he said. He decided not to warn her or her team. He needed to see how they handled pressure and scrutiny on their own. The day of the presentation arrived. I watched from the back of the boardroom, a silent observer. Emily was slick, overconfident, and dismissive of the board's initial, gentle questions. But as the questions grew more pointed, her answers became flustered. She couldn't substantiate her data. She deflected when asked about the risks. Her team, looking to her for guidance, floundered beside her. Tom stayed silent throughout, his face a neutral mask. I could see the board members exchanging looks, their expressions shifting from interest to concern, then to clear disappointment. The presentation unraveled completely. After a tense silence, the meeting was adjourned. As the room emptied, Tom turned to me, his voice low. "You were right about every single point. Let's proceed with your restructuring plan." Tom officially brought me on as an external consultant to help implement the new operational framework. My presence was announced company-wide, but my specific findings and my relation to Emily remained confidential. I started working with different departments, subtly correcting the procedural problems Emily's team had created. I was professional, helpful, and solutions-oriented. I gained quiet allies among the staff who had been frustrated by the old way of doing things. People began to seek me out for advice. The atmosphere in the office began to shift, becoming more collaborative and open. Then, I saw the internal memo. HR was scheduling a formal leadership audit for the entire sales and operations division. The request had come directly from Tom, and it cited the need for a review based on the initial consultant's report. My report. Whispers started circulating through the office grapevine. Employees were talking about the mysterious consultant who had Tom Hensley's ear and was evaluating management performance. The rumor mill went into overdrive, with everyone guessing who was being targeted. Emily, already shaken from her failed presentation, began to panic. I could see the anxiety in her eyes during our brief, awkward phone calls. One evening, she called me, her voice dripping with false sisterly concern. "Clara, you won't believe the drama at work," she said. "There's some outside consultant trying to make a name for themselves, and I think they're gunning for me. What should I do?" I listened. Calm and unreadable, offering vague platitudes, it was a strange and hollow conversation. Tom was so impressed with the progress that he invited me to sit in on a board meeting. I wasn't introduced as his consultant, but as an external expert brought in for industry insights. When the topic of leadership culture arose, Tom gestured to me. I spoke clearly and eloquently, focusing on the importance of accountability, ethical leadership, and sustainable growth over short-term wins. I didn't name names or point fingers. I simply laid out the principles of a healthy organization. The board members nodded, engaged. One older gentleman leaned forward. "That's the kind of clear-headed thinking we need more of around here," he said. Just as he finished speaking, the conference room door opened and Emily walked in, carrying some papers for Tom. She glanced at me, confused, but had no idea the board was talking about me. At our next family dinner, Emily was visibly stressed. She spent most of the meal venting about this rogue consultant who was trying to destroy her reputation and undermine her authority. She was the picture of wounded pride. I simply listened, eating my roast chicken. Our mother clucked sympathetically. Our father, however, was quiet. Finally, he looked up from his plate and said, "Well, Emily, you know your sister used to be a consultant for some major firms before she went out on her own. She might have some advice." The table went silent. Emily stared at me, her face slowly paling as a dawning horror crept into her eyes. The connection was being made. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A text from Tom. "Big restructuring presentation tomorrow. I'd like you there by my side." I met with Tom in his office the morning of the presentation. The air was thick with anticipation. "I'm announcing a major company restructuring today," he told me, his expression serious. "And I'm creating a new, permanent role, Director of Organizational Strategy. I want you to fill it." My heart leaped into my throat. This was everything I had worked for. Then he added, "I'd like you in the room when we discuss each department's performance review. We'll be starting with sales and operations." That was Emily's department. He wanted me there for her review. This was the moment everything would be laid bare, and there was no turning back. The large meeting room was packed with department heads and senior staff, including Emily, who sat near the front, looking confident. Tom began his presentation, outlining the new company vision. Then he moved to departmental reviews. When he clicked to the slide for sales and operations, the room tensed. He praised the department's past ambition and drive. Then his tone shifted. "However," he said, "our external review uncovered consistent issues with cutting corners, poor communication, and a lack of accountability in leadership." He listed the findings, one by one. Emily's face turned from confidence to confusion, then to defensive anger. "That's a gross mischaracterization," she protested, her voice tight. Tom remained calm. "The findings are backed by substantial evidence," he stated. "The consultant who uncovered this is actually here today." All eyes scanned the room. Tom nodded to me, where I sat near the back. I stood up and walked to the front of the room to join him. The silence was absolute. I could feel every stare, but the most piercing one came from Emily. Her jaw dropped. Her eyes widened in utter disbelief. Tom introduced me formally. "This is Clara Miller, the external consultant whose insights and meticulous work helped us identify these critical blind spots and build a stronger path forward." The room erupted in quiet murmurs. Emily was frozen in her seat, her face a ghostly white. She finally found her voice, a trembling, horrified whisper meant only for me. You did this to me?" I met her gaze, keeping my composure despite my racing heart. "I didn't do anything to you, Emily," I said, my voice clear and steady, carrying across the quiet room. "I just did my job. I reported the facts that were already there." A few board members nodded in agreement. One even added, "We're grateful for your professionalism, Miss Miller. This was a difficult but necessary process." The meeting continued, but Emily sat in stunned silence, not hearing another word. That night, as I was relaxing at home, my front door burst open. Emily stormed in, her face contorted with a fury I had never seen before. "How could you?" she screamed. An explosive argument erupted in my living room. Years of buried resentment came pouring out. She accused me of jealousy, of sabotage, of trying to ruin her life. "You were always a nobody," she shouted, her voice cracking. "You couldn't stand that I was successful." I let her rage until she was breathless. Then I spoke quietly. "If I'm such a nobody, Emily," I said, "then why is your boss asking me for advice? Why did he pay me to fix the problems you created?" The truth of my words hit her like a physical blow. Her fury seemed to deflate, replaced by something else. The cold, stark fear of someone who has just realized the ground beneath them is gone. The fight was over. The corporate fallout was swift. Tom formally reassigned Emily to a non-management individual contributor role, pending a full review of her past projects. Her access to leadership channels was revoked. A company-wide email announced the new organizational structure and the creation of the Director of Organizational Strategy role, though my name wasn't attached to it yet. The initiative was based entirely on the consulting framework I had developed. A week later, Tom formally offered me the permanent director position, with a salary and benefits that made my head spin. I accepted without hesitation. My hobby had just become a powerhouse career. Our next family gathering was unbearably tense. Emily played the victim, telling our parents a twisted version of events where I had backstabbed her and stolen her job. Our mother looked worried, but our father listened with a deepening frown. Finally, he held up a hand, silencing her. "Emily," he said, his voice firm, "you humiliated your sister at Christmas in front of everyone. You mocked her work for a year. Maybe this was the lesson you needed to learn." The room went dead quiet. Emily stared at him, her eyes filling with shocked tears. Without another word, she grabbed her purse and fled, slamming the front door so hard the pictures on the wall rattled. Weeks turned into a month. I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Emily had been quietly let go from Helix Dynamics. She couldn't handle the demotion and the shame. Tom mentioned it to me in passing, adding, "She's talented, but she needs a serious attitude adjustment. She could use someone to coach her." I hesitated, the old sisterly bond warring with the fresh wounds. After a long internal debate, I sent her a brief text asking if she wanted to meet for coffee to talk. I wasn't sure she would even reply. To my surprise, she agreed. She showed up at the cafe looking tired and defeated, a shell of her formerly boastful self. We sat in silence for a few minutes. Then Emily broke down. The tears were real this time. "I'm so sorry, Clara," she whispered, her voice thick. "I've been so jealous of you my whole life. You were always so smart, so independent. You never needed anyone's approval. I thought my job and my title made me better than you. I was wrong." She admitted her own deep-seated insecurity, her fear of not being good enough. I listened, and for the first time I saw not my arrogant sister, but a scared and flawed human being. I finally understood the depth of her struggle. When she was finished, I reached across the table. "I'll help you get back on your feet," I said, "but this time, you'll earn it." No shortcuts. Our roles had completely reversed. Emily started from the bottom, taking my advice on her resume and interview skills. She took a lower-level position at a smaller, healthier firm and committed herself to learning, not just climbing. Meanwhile, I thrived in my new role at Helix. I was respected, my ideas were implemented, and I found a true mentor in Tom. I had built a career and a reputation I was genuinely proud of. One afternoon, as autumn began to paint the leaves, a formal envelope arrived in my mail. It was a Christmas dinner invitation. The host, Emily. The scene was eerily similar to the year before. The same dining room, many of the same faces, the same smell of roasted turkey. But the atmosphere was entirely different. Tom Hensley was there, as my guest and colleague. After dessert, Emily stood up and tapped her glass. Everyone quieted down. "I'd like to make a toast," she said, her voice clear and sincere. "To my sister Clara. This year she taught me about humility, hard work, and what real strength looks like. She helped me when she had every reason not to. Thank you." The family cheered, their smiles warm and genuine. Later, Emily's new boss, who was also a guest, turned to me. "We've been applying your collaborative model in our department," he said. "It's changed everything. Thank you." As laughter and conversation filled the room, a deep sense of peace settled over me. I looked around the table where I had once felt so small and humiliated. Now it was filled with respect, gratitude, and healing. The victory wasn't in defeating my sister, it was in finding my own power and helping her find her way back. Emily leaned over and squeezed my hand, whispering words I never thought I'd hear from her. "I'm really proud of you, Clara." I looked at my sister, then at my family, and finally at my own reflection in the dark window. Calm, powerful, and finally redeemed. I smiled, softly replying, "I'm proud of me too." Justice had been served, not with vengeance, but with quiet, unshakable strength.